Hi, welcome to my favorites of the year, where I read so few of my new favorite books that I don't even have 10. Yeah, I wanted to make this an equal 10, but I didn't even have 10 that would suffice. So these are my top 7 favorite books that I read this year. I'll talk about this later on in a different video, probably like my 2024 goals one, but my reading experience this year was lacking just a tad bit, and I have no clue why. Maybe my standards have gotten higher. That's definitely not the reason. I don't know what it is. I think I was also kind of slumpy, but that's not what this video is about. This video is gonna be about the good, all the good, the books that I'm happy that I got to read. There's a lot of books, but I just wouldn't consider them favorites, of course. That's just how it goes. I think these are just ones that were really memorable to me. I could have done 10, honestly, I could have, but I don't know. I just wanted them to be my peak books and ones that I really, really remember. So this is that. The ones I feel need a little bit of a spotlight. Gonna start backwards. So I'm gonna start from book number 7. The first book that I have here is Memoirs of an Imaginary Friend by Matthew Dix. Budo is an imaginary friend of Max, an autistic 8-year-old. Budo goes on a journey of loyalty and love. Yes, the imaginary friend is the narrator and the protagonist of this book, which I loved. He's honestly one of the best characters I've ever read. I just really like who he is as a person, even though he's an imaginary character. Well, aren't all characters? This book was 400 something pages, and I still wish that there was more. The journey that he went on, he saw a bunch of other imaginary friends and kind of befriended them, and I loved that so much. You know, Budo is he's been around. He's been a thing for 5 years, which is very long for an imaginary friend. Usually, imaginary friends will come and go within a day or two or whatever, but Max has had Budo for 5 years. You know, it takes me so much effort to even get a video going, and then this is what I get graced with. All the noise, every noise ever. Yeah, Budo spoke to other imaginary friends. He traveled the city with his limited knowledge, but more knowledge than the other imaginary friends. The way he cared about Max and understood him was done so phenomenally. It was clear that Max truly, really needed Budo at the time that he needed him. I just absolutely love that. That kind of made me tear up, you know? And I think that the autistic representation, if you can call it that, Max being autistic, I think it was done very well. Like I said, he's an 8-year-old kid, so yeah, there was some moments where I just like that it kind of talked about the struggles of autism, especially for a little boy in a public school. I feel I could also really relate to Max, especially with the imaginary friend thing. I mean, you know, as kids we all kind of have them, but I also had a pretty prolonged one. Apparently people play with imaginary friends just to have somebody to play with, but for me, I did it to have somebody to talk with, and so did Max. I think that's really interesting, and play with, but you know. A lot of Budo's friends, they just fade away once they're not needed anymore. And as a person who had a long-term one when I was younger, who I eventually sent off to space one day when I was I don't need you anymore or something like that. So she went off in a spaceship. I really liked a long-term imaginary friend being represented. If that makes sense. Number 6 is Nobody's Ever Missing by Catherine Lacey. This story follows Illyria, who is a woman who has a rather successful and fulfilling life, but one day she decides to book a one-way flight to New Zealand, and I guess she wrote a note to her husband, or did she even do that? I don't know. And never really looked back. Throughout this story, she meets a whole cast of unique individuals. She sleeps wherever she can, and I mean wherever, and she reflects on her life and what her life means, all while attempting to run away from this visceral rage that she constantly always has to suppress and feels inside of her, and also to attempt to mend the grief that was caused from her sister dying. It's just a journey of that. It's very literary fiction, very stream of consciousness, which, I think that's the best way to tell this story, because it really was just so much of, and when people talk to her, like the responses she had in her own head, like just did a really good job at showing who she was as a character. Like a perfect way to understand Illyria and her questionable thought process for a lot of things. I want to reread this book because it's like one of those ones that say such thought-provoking, important things in such a quick, subtle, nonchalant way. It's like, wait, damn, that was good. You like have to reread the sentence. And this is also Catherine Lacey's debut, so I finally got to that. I'm a rather big fan of Catherine Lacey. This list might show you that. I actually haven't read all of her stuff. I think I've read 3 out of 5. Book number 5 is Haven by Emma Donoghue. One day, a priest named Art has a dream where God apparently told him travel and find a place to settle to make a monastery and attempt to be closer to his spirituality, and along with him to bring 2 other people. So Art brings Cormac, this elderly guy in his 80s, and Trian, who is like barely 20. I'm pretty sure he's like 19, maybe he's 20, but he's like a really young guy. Together they travel by ship to an unsullied land where it seems only birds live. Just filled to the brim with birds. Like tensions rapidly become high when Art, takes a leadership position and tells them to do all these tedious, menial tasks. Like Cormac has to write the Bible, and then Trian has to go and hunt. He has to try and kill some fish or birds. And it's a lot, and they never even asked for this. And so, of course, they start resenting Art. Naturally, there is going to be some rift between all 3 of those people, and so this book definitely has that. And my absolute favorite part about this book, though, is the prose. The beautiful, beautiful Emma Donoghue knows how to fucking write. We know this. Like, I just loved the descriptions of everything. You could so easily lose yourself. I will say, though, before I was completely immersed into this book, I was kind of finding it a little bit boring. And a lot of Goodreads reviews also kind of mention that. But I just have to say, I pushed through, obviously. Like, I don't really DNF all that much. And I have to say as well that it's not the first time I felt that way with an Emma Donoghue book. I think it's a stylistic choice. I think she does it on purpose. So, not that I'm like, if you're not vibing with it, you're not vibing with it, of course, but I feel like my advice would be to push on until you're there. I loved the religious undertones. I loved the inevitable dysfunction within this group of men. I loved seeing the area they found filled full of gannet and right above the coast. At the end of this description for this novel, it says, and I quote, Haven has Emma Donoghue's trademark world building and psychological intensity, but this story is like nothing else she has ever written before. And I would say that's pretty accurate. I've only read like 4 out of 7 of Emma Donoghue's books, but this one is by far my favorite so far. There were so many scenes and I'm like, I want to go to there. And I honestly want to reread it just so I can get that experience again. Like, I've not read anything that has such a cool location, just isolated and trying to survive off of what you can survive off of. Like that, I absolutely love that kind of thing. Now, book number 4 that I will be talking about today is another Catherine Lacey. Yeah, she made it on here twice. 2 out of 7. That's pretty good, right? That's crazy. This one is none other than Biography of X. This book just came out this year. When renowned, brilliant, iconoclastic X falls dead in her office, her widow, who is called CM, is determined to write an accurate biography before others get to claim the rights to her late wife's story. But as CM does this, she quickly finds that she didn't really know her wife as much as she always thought. There was a lot of things in her background, and X was always kind of mysterious. And like, not a good person. So CM couldn't be completely surprised, but there was just like a lot more to her wife than she ever really knew. Set in an alternate version of America where being queer is celebrated and womanhood had the opportunity to flourish. Like basically a bunch of artists died, a bunch of male artists died, so it led this whole thing where woman did the art. That's how she could become so prominent. Iconic, honestly. There was so many things. Like, X felt like such a real person. There were so many art exhibits that were described that I wanted to see so badly. Like, if X was an actual artist, she would be an icon. Like many brilliant artists, she has kind of an unbearable personality. She wasn't the best to any of her significant others, and CM was, you know, affected by that, obviously. And so we kind of like delve into that. I will say, like, at points it became kind of hard to stay completely in it because it had a tendency to be a little bit self-indulgent. Like, it just kept on going about certain things that we like. Okay, you honed in the point, we get it. As well as I listened to the audiobook, and there are like fake subnotes, and they would always be narrated out loud with the audiobook, but that was so bothersome to me because it took me out of the story every single time. Like, it was like jarring. I was like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. They were fake news sources. I think there was like small little jokes inside. Like, there's like authors that you might know, like, you know, editors or something that you might actually know. But like, other than that, like, that wasn't for me. I didn't care like that. But other than that, like, because there was pictures and there was like journal entries and shit, and that made it really realistic as well. I just think it's such a cool, fun little idea, like making a fake biography for somebody. Like, that's pretty cool. And like I said, X is such a character. It's just like a very memorable type of person, which I think is pretty hard to do in fiction. Like, I don't know why, but like lately characters have not really been rememberable, at least to me. And so I'm really glad that I got to see this character who shone through. I believe that Catherine Lacey is an extremely talented author, and if you have not read a book by her, go do so. Pew was the first book that I read by her, and I put that in my top books of the year that I read that. I think that was 2021. That was also in my top books. So do with that information what you will. Book number 3. Is Mother Dead by this person? No, I cannot pronounce the name. I am terribly sorry. This is just another one of those stories that speak about the tumultuous relationship between mother and daughter. Joanna is an artist who had left her family to be with this guy and did not even return back even when her father died. She only didn't return back because she thought that her mother did not want her there. That's the only reason why, but of course it became this big misunderstanding. Her mother disliked how Joanna decided to express her emotions about all of this in an art piece that got really, really big, and so that was another damper on their relationship. So basically, Joanna and her mother do not speak, and so what Joanna does about that is she goes to her old hometown where her mother lives and basically stalks her, watches her from afar in hopes that she can say something, or maybe her mom sees her and says something. This story is probably my favorite I have read about a rocky mother-daughter relationship. I think it just shows such nuanced questions and fears that other things just haven't delved into that I've read. Joanna becomes like obsessed with all the thoughts that her mother could possibly be thinking. Does her mom even talk about her, or is it a bad word that nobody uses anymore? How does her mom feel? Angry, sad, disappointed, abandoned? You know, what is it that her mom is even feeling, or does she even feel enough to care about what I'm feeling? You know, it's like one of those things, and the answer is unanswerable, truly. I feel like it's a little hard to talk about this book for 2 reasons. One, I feel like there's so many things that I could say. Like I said, the theme of this this type of relationship is it's done so well. I could go on forever covering this theme because, secondly, I hardcore relate to this story, and with the holidays just passing and blah blah blah, I'm a bit vulnerable to this subject matter, I would say, and I just want to do what I'm best at and avoid my problems and burdens. Okay, book number 2, Mona. I don't know who this is by. I can't remember the person's name. I'm sorry, it's up here. Mona is a story about a Peruvian author named Mona who is nominated for an esteemed literary award. With a sardonic voice, this novel commentates on the absurdity, pompous, arbitrary prestige that is extremely prevalent in the literary world. Cynical as ever, Mona drifts through this environment with her mostly man counterparts who she will never ever be able to relate to. She only gets through all of this like inebriated and distracted, focusing on these mysterious bruises that she has. And through just listening to the cast of characters, think Rachel Cusk in like Outline and those types of books where the novel, like the story itself, is kind of everybody else sharing their piece. And the person, the main character, is kind of just listening and letting it happen. Like Mona is rather passive and just lets anybody say anything to her, really. I think that was my favorite part, just like outgoing people just saying it, outgoing, arrogant people saying whatever they wanted. It's like, okay, do you know how idiotic you sound though? And like, that's real. Some of these characters definitely had opinions, you know? There is like a tad bit of magical realism in this, like just a brush, and it happens at like the end scene, especially at the end scene where, well, I'm not going to say what happens, Jesus, but I really want to reread it because I was like, wait, what just fucking happened? It's a pretty short book, like it's a novella basically, so could read the whole thing again over. I can't lie, I feel like I'm not even smart enough to really get this book completely. Like, I think there was like a lot of things that kind of went over my head, just like references and stuff. But I will say though, when I was reading it, I was just like really, I was like, oh shit, so true, so true. I don't know, I was highlighting shit and I really had a lot of thoughts right after, and then I don't know, I just like, I wanted to do a whole review on it, and then I like clammed up and I'm like, I don't think I even could. Like, I feel like I won't do it justice because I'll have so many things to say that I can't say anything, if that makes sense. And my last but not least, obviously it's more like last but first, last but best, number 1 top book of this year, which is so crazy. Like, this is what I'm saying, I did not have that. Like, I remember when 2021 ended, like all my top books were books that I was so ecstatic about, but this one, like, it was a good book and I enjoyed it, and I still think about it to this day. It's like, since I read it, even though that was only like in November, but early in November, but it's crazy to think that this was my number 1, probably like one of my only 5 stars of this year, you know. It's sad out here. The Guest by Emma Cline. Yay! This is actually the first Emma Cline book I ever read, but it was really great. Just because it had the subject matter that I do indeed love. This story stuck in my head. It's about a 22-year-old woman named Alex, who aimlessly wanders around Long Island while waiting for her boyfriend, who's 50 years her senior, to change his mind about breaking up with her. She waits out Labor Day week and she meets an elaborate cast of people doing whatever she needs to have a temporary place to stay. She will lie for a place to stay. She will have sex with people for a place to stay. She is a very passive person. Everything happening to her almost never elicits like the appropriate response. It's weird, like it's off-putting. What with her ex-boyfriend attempting to contact her to no avail, and partaking in stolen drugs and amongst other things that I don't want to say because like can't say too much. This passivity makes the novel anxiety inducing to the reader. It's like you feel the need to scream like, get it together, act right, which is honestly one of my favorite types of people. It's one of my favorite archetypes in a novel, honestly, and I think that Is Mother Dead kind of also has this, and Mona, which is interesting. Those are all like my top 3. Oh, and Nobody Is Ever Missing, I would say, has a little bit of this, just like a very passive, like, yeah, this is happening to my life and I'm letting it, and it'll be fine, or even if it won't, it doesn't look like I care. I think that's a very interesting character to follow. At first glance, I feel like this book seems rather plotless. It is a simple story about a simple girl. It's like a character study, and it's the pure definition of literary fiction. There's like a foreboding, troubling atmosphere as Alex fabricates her stories and her personality and her desperacy. It's like, who doesn't want to hear that? Who does not want to read about that? You know, I originally gave this a 4 out of 5 right when it was done, but after letting it sink in for approximately like 3 seconds, I realized just how much I enjoyed it. Like, it somehow kept me on the edge while also being a quite languid and here for the journey type story. I loved the beach setting, and I adored how messed up Alex was. Like, Alex was a really good character to follow through it all. Some things happen, okay? Let me just say that. And the way it ends, I'm like, that can't be it. That can't just be it. I really, really do want to reread this one. I know I say that all the time. Like, I'm a rereader. What can I say? I'm ready for that experience again because I'm very thankful for it. Okay. This video went a lot better in my head than out doing this. It's been a rough year, if you can't tell by the videos that I haven't done. I think I posted 3 times this entirety of this year. And I just, I want to make it a goal. Again, this is not for this video, but I do want to make it a goal to be better at posting. And I think that I put like a lot of fake pressure on myself that I need to kind of let go of, because we're just here having fun talking about books. Like, let's calm down. I think it also sucks because like I almost forgot all about like a lot of the books that I've read this year. Like, I don't know, they've just been going in one year out the other type energy. So it's a little sad, and I want to change that this coming year. But again, that's not what this video is about. This video was just my top 7, and it's over finally. I've been doing this for 40 minutes apparently. Don't worry, this video would never be 40 minutes. I would not put a 40-minute video on YouTube. What do I look like? Of course I would. I'm a chatterbox. What? That's it. That's all I have to say. I'm getting Taco Bell soon. I gotta go. But thank you for watching. I hope you guys had a great 2023 reading year. What was your top 3 favorite books? Comment your top 3 faves. And I'll see you around. You'll see me around. Probably. Hopefully.